You wear a helmet and gear to protect yourself when you're riding. But what are you doing to protect your Goldwing when you're riding? Let's talk about that. Hey everybody, welcome to another Cruiseman's Garage installation and review video. Today we're going to be talking about this brand new aluminum belly pan from WingStuff. I'm sure you're familiar with WingStuff. They sell just about everything for the Honda Goldwing, and everybody knows who they are. They now have this belly pan for the 2018 Plus Honda Goldwing. When I say 2018 Plus, what I mean is 2018 and later Goldwing. So 2018 to 2021, and I presume 2022, it should still fit as well. It is made from 6061 aluminum. I'm not a metallurgist, so I can't tell you what that really means, other than that's what it says on the specifications. It's not quite a 1/10 of an inch thick. It's about 0.081 inches thick. It feels sturdy. You could bend it with your hands if you needed to, but it's a pretty long piece of aluminum, so that's reasonable. The main question I think some people are going to have is, why do you even really need a belly pan in the first place? And I can tell you from my own personal experience, when you're going down the highway, depending on the speed, depending on the road, you're always kicking up a certain amount of road debris, and that can come into contact with the bottom of your engine. I actually had this happen to me on a previous Goldwing, and I did about $12,000 worth of damage. Now, I don't know if a belly pan would have prevented that particular damage, but there's all kinds of rocks and just stuff in the road that if you kick it up at the right place and it hits the bottom of that your cast aluminum engine casing and cracks that engine casing, you're looking at a really, really expensive and time-consuming repair job where they have to pull the engine out of the bike, rebuild the engine, so on and so forth. So a belly pan, I think, is really cheap insurance against a potentially expensive and time-consuming repair. This particular belly pan that I'm holding now was sent to me by WingStuff. Now, I would say WingStuff is not sponsoring this video. No money exchanged hands, but they did send me this belly pan to install and review. And this one is made for the DCT model. There's two different versions of this, one for the manual transmission and one for the DCT. And the difference basically is this little cutout here for your DCT oil filter. One of the nice things about this belly pan is you do not have to remove it to do an oil change. They have a cutout for the oil filter and your oil plugs, and so everything is accessible without having to remove this. It mounts in 3 different places. There's a bolt in the rear that we'll install, goes through this hole, and then there's 2 bolts in the front, or actually carriage bolts, that hold it in the front, and we'll show you that here in just a little bit. You'll also notice the WingStuff logo has been laser cut into the belly pan. In fact, the whole belly pan has been laser cut. And there's also some little slots here, and I think that's for ventilation. I doubt that engine heat would be a problem with a belly pan, even if it didn't have those slots, because there is some gap between this and the engine. But, it's nice to have it there, I suppose. So in case you're concerned about engine heat, I've had belly pans on previous Goldwings that literally sit up and touch the bottom of the engine. They didn't have any kind of louvers, and I never had a problem with engine heat. So, but they're there, and, it doesn't hurt to have them. So we're going to install this on my 2018 Goldwing and get you hopefully some good video and images to help you know how to install this. Check it out on wingstuff.com is where you can find this, and we'll put links in the description of this video how you can order this if you're interested. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing you want to do is lay this belly pan in this position. You want this back edge of this to be on top of this bar right here. You don't want it underneath. And then you want to start at the front and slip this belly pan up underneath this plastic cowl, this front lower cowl, like I've got it here. Once you've got this front end up underneath that plastic, the next thing you need to do is get the sides to go up underneath these exhaust cover clips right here. And to do that, you're going to have to push the front of this up pretty far into about an inch, inch and a half into this, underneath this plastic. There's the clip right there. Now I found it a little easier to go ahead and kind of put it under this right clip first, and then go over and work it to get up under that left clip. And then we have to kind of start edging this plate backward. And we want to make sure we can get access to our filters, our oil filter, and our drain plugs. And my hole at the very rear is not quite lined up with the hole in the frame. So I'm going to scoot this plate back just a little bit, maybe half an inch, so I can get that bolt hole to line up. I'm going to go check my alignment with my oil filters too, to make sure I can get access to those. And this bolt is actually going to go in at an angle like this, toward the right side of the motorcycle. There's actually a hole up in that aluminum frame. Okay, here you're looking at the top of the frame, and you can kind of see that bolt poking up there. That's where it's coming out. If you look down here, you can see it's at an angle, and it just kind of goes in up from toward the right side of the bike, and it will come up through that hole in the frame. And now we're going to put our little nut on the end of that bolt with a washer. We want to make sure we put a washer on there. Now to do this, to get this bolt and this nut in the back, I'm going to be laying down with my head toward the rear of the bike. I'll be holding the long bolt with my left hand. And what I'm going to try to do is, I tried this using my right hand to get that nut up in there, but I'm going to use these hemostats to hold that nut. And that, I hope, will make it a little easier to get that nut in place while I turn the bolt to get it all threaded. Getting the washer on is not too difficult, but getting that nut and holding it in the right position, since it's kind of at an angle, trying it with these hemostats, and I'll see if that will help. Oh man, I think it's going to work. I'll tell you what, these hemostats are fire. They have saved my butt so many times, I can't even tell you how much easier that makes that. If you do not own these hemostats, you've got to go get some. I'm just tightening this by hand right now. I'm going to go grab my crescent wrench, and I don't have I think this is a 5/16 or a half, I'm not sure. You see how that looks? Well, that's normal. That's the way it's supposed to look. It's not supposed to be straight because the bolt goes in at an angle. It's kind of strange, I know, but that's the way it is. Not exactly the right tool for the job. But I think it's going to work. So I'm holding the nut with the hemostat, and I'm just turning this bolt with the crescent wrench, and it's working. Not the best tool. I should have a socket or a wrench, preferably a socket, but it works. And it's tightening down pretty much. I'd say that's about as tight as I need to go, actually. Now, let's take a look at what we have up here on top. Let me get my center stand out of the way and get my camera up in here. So let me go to a little bit zoomed in. That's what it looks like where the nut and the washer on top. Remember, this goes through at an angle, but that's what's going to hold the back of that belly pan in place. Okay, now we have 2 more bolts and we're done. Once I got this rear bolt tightened down, I found it was easier to put the bike back on the center stand to complete the installation. What we have to do is we have to attach these little brackets here to these little square holes right here in the, I've got one sitting up here. These little square holes in the belly pan. Now we've got these little carriage bolts, I'll show you here, right here, and these are gonna slip up in there like that, and that square will hold them kind of captive. And this right here, I believe, I'm trying to figure out which one it is, should go in there like that somehow. Let's see, no. It actually is this one. Now what's going to happen is this hole, this is going to mount to the bottom bolt of our engine guard. We're going to remove this engine guard bolt and we're going to install this little aluminum bracket. And this bracket, I think, is going to have to kind of bend around the exhaust pipe so that we can line it up down here and attach it kind of like that. And that will be the front mount for this belly pan. So let's go ahead and remove this. I think it's a 12mm bolt. This is the bolt right here we need to remove. So that's the first thing we're going to do is take that bolt out. Okay, you can kind of see how it's ending up. I put a little bend in here so that it would fit flush to the engine casing when I put my screw back in. I just wanted to make sure it was not going to be in a weird bind. So let me get it in there now. Now I can put my screw in and you'll notice on this right side, I forgot to put the washer underneath the nut. So I went back later and removed that nut and put the washer underneath. Now let's go take a look at how I did all of this again on the left side of the bike. So what I did is I've kind of bent this around the exhaust. Just a beginning bend, just to kind of see where it's going to line up. And now I'm going to create another little bend right here opposite direction, so that it will fit flush against the engine casing, because I don't want to run the risk of doing a cross thread when I put this bolt back in. So this is real soft aluminum, so I'm just going to create a little bend like that right there, and that should be enough to get it to fit flush against that engine casing. Let's go try it now. So here's our mounting hole that goes to the engine case. Here's the bolt I removed, and this is for the lower engine guard bolt. I'm going to take this and slip it up in here and see how that fits flush now. It's no longer at an angle. And then once I get that bolt in, I can bend this aluminum down to fit down here into this, so the holes line up down here. I just want to make sure I've got a good flush fit before I put my bolt back in to the engine guard right here. Let's just line it up, see if I can get it started. So you can see how my bolt is coming up through the bottom, and I got this piece bent like I needed it so that these holes lined up good enough that I can get that nut in there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 1/2-inch wrench. And from underneath the bike, this is what the belly pan looks like once it's been completely installed. You can see on the DCT model, we still have access to our DCT clutch filter and our oil filter in the front of the bike. So what are my final thoughts on this aluminum belly pan from WingStuff.com? Well, it certainly does provide some protection for the underside of your engine, and that's a good thing. However, because of the laser cutouts for your oil filter and your drain plugs, it does leave those areas of the engine unprotected. Also, those laser cutout areas can be very sharp, so when you go to change your oil, I'm afraid you could cut yourself. I'll probably file or sand mine down just to make those edges a little smoother. And lastly, I'd have felt more comfortable if there'd been a cotter key or something in the top of these bolts. I don't think they would work themselves out, but it would just be a nice touch. As I mentioned earlier, you can order this belly pan through wingstuff.com, and I'll put a link in the description of this video. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to click the like button. It really does help our YouTube rankings, and I'll see you on the next Cruiseman's Reviews.